was supposed to be just another day. The city hummed with its usual morning energy, car horns blaring, heels clicking against the pavement, and the faint aroma of fresh coffee drifting from street carts. Sarah Mitchell blended right into the chaos, as she always did. A creature of habit, she followed her routine with precision. Wake up at 6:30 a.m., grab a caramel macchiato from Joe's Coffee on Fifth Avenue, and head for her morning jog along Central Park's east side. By 9 a.m., she would be at her advertising firm, ready to tackle the day. But on April 12th, something changed. By noon, Lisa Carter, Sarah's best friend and roommate, started to worry. Sarah was usually glued to her phone, responding to texts within minutes, but this time, silence. Lisa sent a few casual messages at first. Then she called. No answer. Maybe she got caught up in a meeting, Lisa told herself, but deep down she knew something was off. By 6 p.m., the unease had settled into full-blown panic. Lisa dialed every hospital in the area. Nothing. Finally, she grabbed her coat and headed straight to the NYPD's 14th precinct, her heart hammering in her chest. She's missing, Lisa told the officer at the desk. Something's wrong. Detective Mark Reynolds was the one to take her statement. A seasoned cop with years of experience, he had heard this story before. Most missing persons cases resolved themselves within 24 hours. Still, something about Lisa's desperation made him pause. By midnight, Sarah was officially listed as missing. That's when they found the first clue, her phone, left on a park bench near Central Park's west side. It was still playing her jogging playlist. Lisa frowned. That's not her route. Detective Reynolds glanced at the phone. No texts, no missed calls, no signs of struggle, just music playing on an otherwise abandoned device. Sarah Mitchell had vanished without a trace. And the only question left was, who took her? Detective Mark Reynolds rubbed his temples as he stared at the grainy surveillance footage from the park. He had seen countless missing persons cases before, but something about Sarah Mitchell's disappearance unsettled him. People didn't just vanish into thin air. There was always a trace, a misstep, a mistake. But this? This was different. The footage was frustratingly ordinary at first. At exactly 8:23 a.m., Sarah jogged past the intersection of 72nd Street and Fifth Avenue, her ponytail bouncing, her arms moving in rhythm with her steps. She wore black leggings, a blue hoodie, and white running shoes. Her earbuds were in, completely absorbed in her run. But then, nothing. At 8:27 a.m., the next frame showed only an empty sidewalk. No sign of Sarah, no sudden struggle, no running, no car stopping to grab her. Just gone. Reynolds rewound the footage, then played it forward again. His gut twisted. It was as if she had been erased from existence. Lisa Carter sat across from him, her fingers gripping the armrests of her chair. That doesn't make sense, she murmured. She wouldn't just leave. Something happened to her. Reynolds agreed, but there was little evidence to work with, until the package arrived. It was late afternoon when Lisa returned to her apartment and found a small brown envelope wedged under the door. No return address, no postage stamp. Someone had hand-delivered it. Inside was a single item, Sarah's gold locket. Lisa gasped, her hands shaking as she unclasped it. She knew this necklace well. It had been a gift from Sarah's mother, something she never took off. But the real shock came when Lisa opened the locket. The small picture of Sarah's parents was gone. Instead, there was a tiny, folded note with only 3 words written in red ink. Time is running. Lisa didn't know whether to scream or cry. Her best friend was out there, somewhere. And now, someone was playing a game. A dangerous one. Detective Reynolds leaned back in his chair, staring at the bank records spread across his desk. Something wasn't adding up. Sarah Mitchell was a woman of routine, someone who lived predictably. Same coffee shop, same jogging route, same close-knit circle of friends. So why had she withdrawn $5,000 in cash just 2 weeks before her disappearance? And why had she purchased a burner phone? Lisa sat across from him, her arms crossed tightly. That has to be a mistake, she insisted. Sarah never mentioned anything about needing money. She wasn't secretive. She would have told me. Reynolds sighed. People keep secrets, Lisa. even from their best friends. He flipped through Sarah's call logs and found something even stranger: multiple calls to a single number in upstate New York, a number registered to a Daniel Whitmore. "Who is that?" Lisa asked, frowning. "I was hoping you could tell me." Lisa shook her head. "I've never heard that name before." Reynolds tried dialing the number, but it had already been disconnected. That meant one thing: whoever Sarah had been talking to didn't want to be found. Determined to get answers, Reynolds traced Sarah's financial records further. She had used a credit card to book a motel room in Buffalo 2 weeks prior, under an alias. Why? Lisa's face paled. This doesn't make sense. Sarah wasn't... She paused, swallowing hard. I mean, she wasn't involved in anything illegal. Reynolds wasn't so sure. People didn't just vanish without a reason. Either Sarah had been running from something, or running to someone. Then came the biggest break yet. A hit on security footage. A gas station camera near Buffalo had captured Sarah. She wasn't alone. Standing beside her was a man with a deep scar down his left cheek, wearing a black leather jacket. Sarah looked tense, her arms folded, shifting uncomfortably. Reynolds exhaled sharply. "Who the hell is that?" Lisa's eyes widened as she stared at the screen. Whoever he was the last known person to see Sarah alive. And now, he was their prime suspect. Detective Reynolds ran a hand over his stubbled jaw as he stared at the latest crime scene report. The pieces of Sarah Mitchell's disappearance were finally starting to form a picture, but the image was still distorted, still missing something crucial. Then the call came in. "Detective, we've got something," Officer Jennings said on the other end of the line. "Burned-out vehicle found off Route 2819, just outside Buffalo. Matches the rental Sarah Mitchell took out under the alias Emily Carson." Reynolds grabbed his coat and headed straight for the scene. The car was a husk of charred metal, its insides completely gutted by flames. The fire department had already confirmed the blaze was intentional. Someone had torched it. And inside, a body. Reynolds took a slow breath. The coroner's initial report suggested it was a female of similar height and build to Sarah, but the body was too badly burned for visual confirmation. They would need dental records. Lisa arrived at the precinct soon after, her face pale and drawn. "It's not her," she whispered, shaking her head violently. "I know it's not her." Reynolds wished he could be so sure. But before he could offer her any empty reassurances, another call came in, this time from a gas station attendant in a small town an hour from Buffalo. "I think I saw that girl you're looking for," the man said. "Couple days ago. She was with some guy, looked scared." Reynolds wasted no time. Within an hour he had the footage in front of him. And there she was. Sarah. Alive. She was wearing a hoodie, her hair tucked under a baseball cap, but there was no mistaking the tension in her posture, the way her eyes darted around the store. The man beside her, the one with the scar, stood close, like he was making sure she didn't run. Lisa gasped. "She's alive." Reynolds nodded, his mind racing. The burned body had been a distraction, a way to throw them off. Someone wanted them to believe Sarah was dead. But Sarah wasn't just missing. She was being held. And now they were closer than ever to finding her. Detective Reynolds barely had time to process the breakthrough before his phone rang again. This time, it was the FBI. "We've been tracking Carter Dawson for months," Agent Jessica Monroe said over the line. "Human trafficking, extortion, and blackmail. If he has Sarah Mitchell, she's in serious danger." Reynolds clenched his jaw. The man with the scar, Carter Dawson, wasn't just some random abductor. He was a professional, and that meant Sarah's time was running out. The gas station footage had given them a lead. Dawson's car, a dark blue Chevy Tahoe, had been caught heading north toward the Adirondacks. Reynolds, Monroe, and a SWAT team mobilized fast, following every breadcrumb of surveillance footage they could. Hours later, they reached a remote dirt road leading deep into the forest. An old hunting cabin sat at the end of the path, hidden beneath a thick canopy of trees. "This is it," Monroe whispered, signaling to the team. Reynolds' heart pounded. If Sarah was inside, they had to move fast. With a silent nod, SWAT breached the door. The cabin was dark, the air thick with the scent of damp wood and stale cigarette smoke. A flickering light bulb buzzed overhead. Papers were strewn across a wooden table, maps, burner phones, and stacks of cash, the kind of setup used by someone constantly on the move. Then, they found the first real sign of Sarah. A torn piece of her blue hoodie, blood-stained and clinging to a nail near a locked door. Reynolds kicked it open. The room was empty, except for a single wooden chair, its rope bindings cut. The window was open, cold air rushing inside. "Damn it," Reynolds cursed. She had been here, probably just hours ago. But Dawson was always one step ahead. Then Monroe's radio crackled. "Dispatch, we have a 911 call traced to a disposable phone in the area. A woman's voice, barely audible. We're sending you the coordinates now." Reynolds and Monroe locked eyes. Sarah was alive, and she was calling for help. The SUV skidded to a halt on the gravel road, sending a cloud of dust into the cold night air. Detective Reynolds and Agent Monroe jumped out, their weapons drawn, as the coordinates from the 911 call led them to an abandoned sawmill deep in the Adirondack woods. The place was falling apart, rusted machinery, broken windows, and a sagging roof that creaked in the wind. But inside, someone was waiting. Sarah. Reynolds' gut twisted as he signaled to his team. They moved quickly, their footsteps muffled by the dirt-covered floor. The faint glow of a single light flickered from an office in the back. Then they heard it, a muffled cry. Reynolds moved first, kicking the door open with one swift motion. Sarah sat bound to a chair, her wrists tied with thick rope, her face bruised and tear-streaked, her eyes widened in terror at the sudden noise, until she saw them. "Sarah," Lisa Carter's voice crackled through the detective's earpiece. "Is she okay?" "We've got her," Reynolds responded, his voice steady despite the adrenaline rushing through him. Monroe moved to cut Sarah's bindings, but before she could, a shadow emerged from the darkness. Carter Dawson. The scarred man held a gun to Sarah's temple, his fingers steady, his smirk cold. "You think I didn't see this coming?" he sneered. "You think she's leaving here alive?" Reynolds didn't hesitate. A single shot rang out. Dawson staggered backward, his gun falling from his grasp as he collapsed onto the floor, clutching his shoulder. Monroe was already on him, securing the weapon and pinning him down as backup swarmed in. Sarah gasped, sobbing as Reynolds and Monroe freed her from the chair. I thought he was going to kill me," she choked out. "You're safe now," Reynolds assured her. "It's over." Sarah collapsed into Lisa's arms the moment they reunited, and as Dawson was dragged away in cuffs, Reynolds finally let out the breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Sarah Mitchell was going home, and the nightmare was finally over.